Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome again to another edition of the Corby Connection. And our host of the Corby Connection is Pat Cowley, and our guest today is Dan Allen. Dan obtained his bachelor's degree in 2007 and his master's degree in 2011 from the University of Notre Dame. He was a member of the marching band during his undergraduate days and was named the Outstanding Band Member of the Year, his senior year. He also met his wife, Stephanie, in the band, and they now reside in nearby Granger, Indiana. After spending time in the campus and parish ministries, Dan returned to Notre Dame, now serves as the Associate Director of Spirituality and Service for the Notre Dame Alumni Association. Part of his responsibilities include overseeing Faith ND, a digital evangelization effort for Notre Dame alumni, parents, friends, in addition to the more than 103,000 subscribers to its daily gospel reflection. He shares multimedia content on topics of faith throughout the year and receives more than 1 million sites annually. With that said, I'm going to turn it over to Pat and Dan.
Thank you, Mike. And Dan, thanks for being here. You know, it strikes me that there are a couple of things that are distinctive about Notre Dame. One is that the university is unapologetic about its devotion to faith being part of education. And the other part is that it has a fiercely loyal alumni base and base of friends of the university. And where you come in really ties those two distinctive factors together. One thing that I wanted to ask you about to sort of get into how the university reaches out to the huge alumni and friends network on this distinctive aspect of faith at Notre Dame is Faith ND, which can be found at faith.nd.edu. Could you just tell us a little bit about what the overall mission of that site is and how it sets everything forward for ease of use?
Yes, well, Faith ND was started a number of years ago, 10 plus years ago or so. It had a couple of different iterations. It was PrePandemic for a while, and as some of my predecessors found their footing, Faith ND really emerged as what connected with people and what covered the number of things that we wanted to do in terms of how do we engage our alumni, parents, and friends spiritually and using the tools available to us with technology in the digital age. And so Faith ND has grown by leaps and bounds over the course of its time. And I really feel like I stand on the shoulders of giants, as you would say, of the people who helped get this going when it was a young idea. And it really, to your point, Pat, because Notre Dame alumni, parents, and friends are so passionate often about their faith and about this university, it just gives us a really big platform for ideas and sharing faith that we might not otherwise have. And so it's just a real privilege to be involved in it and see the many ways that it touches so many people, not only every day, but throughout the years that it's been in existence.
You know, your comment on standing on the shoulders of giants, I speaking of which, I found out yesterday looking at Faith ND that it was the birthday of Father Soren, who founded the university. He came to a frozen field in northern Indiana, and now we're talking over Zoom. And so we're all standing on the shoulders of giants. But I like how you describe how it's evolved, because there is an awful lot more than just the pray aspect, although that's pretty incredible. On faithnd.edu, you can submit Grotto prayer requests. So if you can't make it to the Grotto yourself, but that's everybody who's been there understands the what that experience is like to go there and to say a prayer, you can actually submit a Grotto prayer request. There's there are daily gospel reflections. I mean, just go into, I mean, there's not only the pray aspect, and we'll get to some of the other things, but praying continues to be a part of the experience of faithnd.edu.
Absolutely. We know that so many people's spiritual lives grew while they were students here or were enhanced while they visited here or had loved ones who were in school here or worked here, whatever the case may be. And we realized that while some of us are blessed to be on campus almost every day, that's not the case for so many. And so part of our mission is to bring that aspect of faith in Notre Dame to the world, wherever you find yourself. And we do have readers and website visitors from all over the world who come in and take part in this content. And I always say that our content is meant for anyone, any person of faith who would finding it meaningful, but it's especially meaningful for people who have some connection to Notre Dame, because there might be someone you knew who wrote today's gospel reflection, or a Holy Cross priest who was your dorm's rector, or who presided at your wedding or something, who wrote today's prayer, or just some aspect of campus, a picture or video that brings back a lot of memories. And so we want to do that through all of our digital content. But the Grotto is such an important place for so many of us. We think about many life's moments and difficulties and questions often end up at the Grotto. And we realize that while we can go down there every day, not everyone has that blessing. And so we do accept those requests through Faith ND every day, hundreds of requests, thousands over the course of a year, where people submit their prayers. Someone from our team responds individually to those prayer intentions, and then we collect them, and a group of volunteers actually goes to the Grotto and prays them on their behalf. And that's so meaningful to people to know that at this sacred place, and especially specifically at the Grotto, that prayer intention is being offered there. So all of it is meant to engage our alumni, parents, and friends spiritually in whatever way is most meaningful to them. And we try to offer a wide array of things, with which people can engage.
I think especially over the last couple of years, there's been more isolation, not only people from Notre Dame, but even in their local communities, isolation from the people who matter most to them. For the first time, how many Catholics out there are attending Mass by sitting in front of their computer screen? So on that line, you even have a video of daily Mass at the Sacred Heart Basilica available on this site.
Yes, as the rest of the world was, we were responding in real time to the coronavirus pandemic, and not exactly sure what it was going to mean for our Faith ND audience, and also how long it was going to last. And we underestimated how long that would be, but we knew that as it became clearer what we were really going through, a historical event that needed a response, we really sat down virtually and said, what can we do, not to replace the sacraments, of course, not to make up for, to take away this pain, to take away some of the fear that we were all feeling, but just to walk with people spiritually. And so we did a number of things. We started streaming a video, a rosary from the Grotto once a week. And then we started adding some virtual masses. We had some milkshake masses, for those of you who might remember those from Dillon Hall. We had some milkshake masses. We did some different Lenten programming, because the pandemic was happening right in the thick of Lent. And one really beautiful thing that started then and has since continued as we partnered with campus ministry to stream the daily Mass from the Basilica of the Sacred Heart. For a number of years now, the Basilica's Sunday 10 a.m. Mass has been available on EWTN and now on Catholic TV, and a number of places you can find that. But we realized that there were a lot of daily Mass goers that either couldn't, or for reasons of the pandemic, or just their parish wasn't even having daily Mass, that we could bring that to people. And so in partnership with campus ministry, we were able to embed that on the page. And so many of us were attending the Triduum and the Easter liturgies for the first time virtually. And so we really had a push to make sure that was available. And that's been one of the happy outcomes of this, God willing, when this pandemic ends, is we think we'll be able to continue sharing that digital resource and connecting people every day back to campus and the Basilica in that special way.
And to go back to what you were saying about expanding on the original goal of PrePandemic to a broader faith mission, I was going through the site recently, and there's a tab that's not just pray, but there's another tab that says explore, and there's an extraordinary amount of detail on there, even the ability to go and read text and look at photos and actually watch videos from the Holy Land. And I understand maybe you had something to do with that personally. You may have had some travels over to the Holy Land.
Yeah, pre-pandemic as well. We oftentimes you hear the Holy Land described as the fifth gospel, because if you ever have the chance to go, there's a real sense you're walking in the footsteps of Christ and his followers and thinking about all those stories in a new way when the place that is referenced in the gospel is the place where you're standing. And so it's a very powerful experience. But again, not everyone has that privilege and ability and the blessing to do so. And so for a number of years, we have curated content from the Holy Land. A previous Faith ND editor, Josh Noem, went over several years ago with a group from the Masters of Divinity program and put together a virtual pilgrimage that we're able to really utilize again and again as people are interested in that. And then in 2019, I had the privilege of going over to the Holy Land as a part of our Lenten outreach. We often do seasonal outreach during Advent and Lent, helping people pray those seasons in a special way. And so for Lent that year, we did a Lenten pilgrimage to the Holy Land in digital form. And so I went with a group from Traveling Irish here in the Alumni Association, and we went over to the Holy Land, and we had a number of things. One, there was a live blog while we were there, kind of taking people along with us day by day. We had some set pieces throughout the heart of Lent. And at the end, we did Walking in the Footsteps of Jesus from Palm Sunday to Easter. And so we had a number of these historic sites and churches and witness reflections that we were able to record at the start of Lent and then release those during Holy Week, so that people's Holy Week would really be enhanced. And those videos, I think, are again, evergreen in a way that each Holy Week you could go and experience that anew for the first time. And so it's just a great resource that we have for people who want to explore a little bit more and see some of the places, especially from a Notre Dame and Faith ND perspective.
I was just thinking the same thing, that the goal in general in having this conversation is to let members of our club and other people who happen to watch these interviews know, if they aren't already aware of it, of the resources on Faith ND. But we're coming up before too long on the Lenten season, and this would be a great opportunity for them to use that resource as a powerful supplement to what they're doing during that season in their own faith journey. So that's great. And to another resource that might be available is a podcast that you happen to run. You're a busy guy, Dan. So the podcast is called Everyday Holiness. Could you tell us about that?
Yeah, so we have our daily gospel reflection email, which is really the staple of every day. We have lots of subscribers to that email, 103,000 currently, who receive that email every day. There's a different writer from the Notre Dame family every day. People love the DGR, as we like to call it. But we always want to be innovative and supplement that, maybe some other ways to reach people. And so one way that we thought we could do that a few years ago was through podcasting. Podcasting has become very popular. It's something you can do getting ready in the morning, on your morning commute, taking your dog for a walk. It doesn't require the same kind of attention as sitting down and reading something, but it's also a way that storytelling can be done in a more personal way, even sometimes than the written word. And so with that, we said, well, what would people want to hear from Faith ND and the Notre Dame family? And really the power of story is what we thought would resonate most and could keep it going season after season, that people's stories are very interesting. And we really thought about, well, what is the call, the Christian call, the foundational call of our baptism? It's a call to holiness. And Vatican II talks about this universal call to holiness. And so we're all called to holiness, but what does that look like? Well, it looks different in different vocations and ages and stages of life. And just because you make vows towards marriage or to become a priest or a religious brother or sister, that doesn't mean that your call to holiness is done, that your discernment is over. And so we find it really interesting to just meet a number of different people, as I said, in different vocation, ages, and stages of life, and talk to them about some of the important discernment and decision points along the way in their life, and where they found God calling them, and where they saw and were inspired by holiness in other people, and ultimately what they're trying to do to cultivate holiness in their own life. Admittedly, we played around with the idea actually originally of calling it Everyday Saints. We said, no, we're not saints yet, but we're trying, we're striving. And so it's really about that striving, and just so the many interesting experiences and stories along the way that we can share with people. And so it's been a wonderful thing to be involved in from my life, because I feel like I get to sit down with 7 or so people every season and just talk to them for an hour. I don't say as much about myself, but I hear their wonderful stories. And I've been really spiritually enriched by the stories, and find myself going back and listening to some of the discussions we've had, because it's so inspiring to hear how other people are trying to strive after this common goal of holiness.
Well, you're preaching to the choir there. Just by having these conversations with Corby Connections, I feel like I'm getting a download of people's experiences, especially tied to Notre Dame, that's often profound, often entertaining, and I feel fortunate to have that opportunity. Could you give us maybe an example of 2 or 3 stories or types of stories that you've heard through Everyday Holiness, the types of people in one line of work or living situation or another where they are finding holiness in their everyday pursuits?
Yeah, there are probably too many to recount. A couple, I always try and get a mix of vocations. So a recent graduate, a married couple, a priest, a religious sister, or someone pursuing religious life. A couple that come to mind, Ron and Beth Grizzoli are both employees here at Notre Dame, but have a pretty amazing story of living in the New Orleans area during Hurricane Katrina, becoming displaced by that storm, and actually that eventually led them up here to Notre Dame. And just there, I was inspired. I married myself, as Mike mentioned in the intro there, and I was just really inspired by their marriage story and the way that they stayed true to their vows through some hardships of being, as I said, dislocated by the storm and having to move, as well as some of the challenges with their children, and some special needs with one of their daughters, that they've navigated those waters. And they were just a beautiful story. The other one that comes to mind was a part of this last season with Colonel Mike Hopkins, who's a Notre Dame parent and NASA astronaut. And I got to talk to an astronaut who had just recently returned from the International Space Station, but really what amazed me about him was he had stayed so grounded in his faith. He had talked to his parish priest and brought the Eucharist with him to the space station, and just stayed really connected to his faith. And there's this moment where he's talking about, there's this cupola or something, this place where you can look out and see the Earth as going around, and it's a great place on the space station for reflection. And he was talking about being there in space, but longing to be back on Earth with the people he loved and the people that God had blessed him in his life. And it was just, I don't know. I mean, we'll see with all this space tourism and all that, if I ever get that perspective. But just to know of someone as accomplished as that, to be, a NASA astronaut and yet so grounded in his faith, it was hard for me to continue the interview, because my mind and heart were getting pulled in so many ways. Just this amazing experience. So as again, I said, I feel blessed a lot in this work, but I did feel blessed to talk with him. And then there's just been a number of other inspiring stories of people who especially when they go through hardship and yet stay strong in their faith and see their faith as an asset in the face of that adversity. And I find myself wondering, boy, I don't know if I could respond in that same way, but I'm inspired by knowing someone a little bit who has done so. So I really enjoy the conversations quite a bit.
That's amazing, because it really comes down to what you just said, whether it's the mundane or whether it's going through Katrina or the danger of and just the awe-inspiring experience of space travel. You're finding people who are looking outside of themselves for gratitude and for the ways they've been blessed. I mean, I can only imagine that instills in anybody listening to it reflections on their own life, the challenges they face, and the blessings they have, and the ways to find holiness in their own lives. So this is amazing. I just want to reiterate that all of this can be found at faith.nd.edu. Is there any other responsibility that you possibly have time for in your day that you handle at NDAA, Dan?
Oh, for sure. And I must say, it's very much a team effort. We've got a number of people here, not only on our spirituality and service team, but on our marketing and communications team, who help us with things like the Sacred Places of Notre Dame series we did for Advent the past few years. A lot of people saw those videos and we're pleased to see them. We've got a whole wing on the service side of things, where we have our family volunteer camp and family volunteer camp on the road. A number of people would have heard about Meals with Muffet or Hope for the Holidays, some of the service things that we do. And then every once in a while, when people either come back to campus for things like Alumni Association Leadership Conference, reunion, or our board meetings, or we go out out to the world, so to speak, is usually through like the Shamrock Series or the Notre Dame football bowl games. We always try and pray together and serve together. And so whether it's people coming back to campus or we're going out, we're always putting together plans to have people serve together, and then often at Mass and other opportunities to pray together. So that falls within the purview of my team as well, where we're trying to cultivate those opportunities. And then the last thing that I would mention that comes to mind right now is the Chuck and Joan Lennon Gospel of Life initiative, named after our late and dear executive director before Dolly Duffy, Chuck Lennon. Just a set of programs that's trying to help the Notre Dame Club Network get involved in protection of life issues and helping serve the vulnerable in a number of ways. And that's just been inspiring to see the clubs take part in that and be part of those projects and apply. And so we get to be the recipients of that good news and see all the good work that's going out there in the club's network. So a number of great things going on here. And like I said, many times I feel very blessed to be part of it.
I'm sure you do. And the Notre Dame Club of Gettysburg not only appreciates the work that you're doing, but also your willingness to spend some time with us today and share it. So Dan, thank you. And I'm going to kick it back over to Mike.
Well, Dan and Pat, thanks again for another all-inspiring Corby Connections. Very, very much at the soul of everybody who's been to Notre Dame or follows Notre Dame can relate to the Faith ND and what you offer there.
Thank you for having me. It was an honor to talk to you.